It was raining that day. The sky was dark and cold wind blew through the city streets. People walked fast, holding umbrellas, trying not to get wet. No one looked around. No one wanted to stop. But there, on the corner near the traffic light, stood an old woman. Her gray hair was wet and flat against her face. Her coat was old and soaked through. She had no umbrella. Her shoes were muddy. She looked confused and scared, like she didn't know where she was or where she was going. She didn't speak. She didn't shout. She just stood there, turning her head slowly, hoping someone would notice her. But no one did. A man in a suit bumped into her and kept walking. A young woman glanced at her, then looked away. Some even crossed the street to avoid her. To them, she looked like another homeless woman, just a sad part of the city background. But she wasn't. She was someone's grandmother. She had a name. She had a story. And she was lost. Cars passed by, splashing water from the road. Her hands shook. Her eyes blinked fast, trying to fight tears. She tried to ask someone for help once, but the man didn't even stop to hear her. She smiled weakly at a woman with a baby, but the woman just pulled her child closer and walked faster. The old woman slowly sat down on the edge of the sidewalk near a trash bin. She looked around again. No one came. No one asked. No one cared. But far across the road, on a worn-down bench, a teenage boy sat watching her. He had a small paper bag of food in his hands. It was just some fries he bought with his last few coins. His clothes were simple. His shoes were old and torn. His hoodie was a little too big for him. But his eyes were kind. His name was Malik. He didn't know who the woman was. He had never seen her before. But something in his heart told him that she didn't belong on the street like that. Something was wrong. At first, he waited. Maybe someone would help her. Maybe a kind adult would stop. Maybe a police officer would notice, but no one did. People walked past her like she was air, like she didn't exist. Malik watched her try to wipe her face, but her hands were too cold. He saw her shiver, her lips turning slightly blue from the cold. And that's when Malik stood up. He didn't think about what others would say. He didn't wonder if someone would laugh at him. He just knew that if he didn't help her, maybe no one would. He crossed the street slowly, stepping through puddles. Cars zoomed by, and a few drivers honked at him, but he kept walking. When he reached the woman, he crouched down and softly said, "Ma'am, are you okay?" She didn't answer at first. Her eyes stared at him like she couldn't believe someone had spoken to her. He smiled gently. "Do you need help?" He asked again. This time, her lips moved. She whispered something, too soft to hear. Malik moved closer and offered her the small bag of fries. "Here, eat something," he said. She took the bag slowly, like she hadn't eaten all day. She looked at him again, and this time, tears came down her cheeks. Not because of the fries, not because of the rain, but because someone finally saw her. Malik took off his hoodie and placed it around her shoulders. "It's warm," he said. "You don't have to be cold anymore." The old woman held the hoodie tight. She didn't know who this boy was. He had nothing, yet he gave her everything he had. People walking by now started to slow down, curious. Some even stared. But Malik didn't care. He just wanted to make sure she was safe. He looked around. No phone, no bag, no ID on her. She was truly lost. And still, no one else offered help. Just a teenage boy with kind eyes and a warm heart. He told her, "Don't worry, I'm going to find someone who can help you. You're not alone." And for the first time that day, under the cold gray sky, the old woman smiled, a soft, tired smile. It was the first moment she didn't feel invisible. Because Malik, someone who had no reason to help, saw her as a human being. And that changed everything. That's how it all began. In the middle of the rain, with a forgotten woman and a boy who refused to ignore her, Malik stayed beside the old woman, holding his jacket tightly around her shoulders so she wouldn't shiver more. She looked weak, and her hands were still shaking. The small bag of fries he gave her sat in her lap. She hadn't eaten it yet. Her lips tried to form words, but they trembled too much. "Do you remember your name?" Malik asked gently. She looked at him with wide, scared eyes. For a moment, she said nothing. Then finally, in a broken voice, she whispered, I think, Margaret." Her voice cracked at the end, and she looked down, confused again. "Margaret," Malik repeated softly, trying to comfort her. "Okay, that's a pretty name." He looked around, hoping someone would come help, but people still passed by. Some looked at them, then looked away. A few whispered to each other, thinking Malik was bothering the woman. But he didn't move. He knew in his heart she needed someone. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Margaret slowly shook her head. "No, just, I don't know where I am," she whispered. "I was somewhere else, and then I don't remember." Her voice faded into silence. Malik understood now. She wasn't just lost on the street. She was lost in her mind. Maybe she had memory problems. Maybe something was very wrong. She looked clean before the rain hit her. Her dress looked expensive, now wet and dirty. She didn't seem like someone who lived on the street. Something wasn't right. "I'm going to find help," he said, standing up. "Don't worry. I'm not leaving you." Margaret reached out and touched his hand. Her grip was weak, but she held on. Her eyes were full of fear. "Please, don't leave me." "I won't," he promised. Malik looked around again. He didn't have a phone. His phone broke weeks ago, and he couldn't afford to fix it. He looked toward a small shop nearby and ran up to the owner standing at the door. "Sir, please, that old lady is lost. She doesn't know who she is. Can I use your phone to call someone?" Malik asked, out of breath. The shopkeeper looked over Malik's shoulder. "What her? She's probably just another crazy one. City's full of them." "No, sir," Malik insisted. "She's not homeless. She doesn't belong on the street. She's not okay." The man sighed, but he handed Malik a small mobile phone. "Make it quick," Malik called the emergency number. When the operator picked up, he explained everything. "She's lost. Her name might be Margaret. She's old, wet, and scared. Please come help her." He gave them the street name and nearby buildings. After the call, he ran back to Margaret. She was still there, looking around like a child in a strange place. "They're coming," he said. "It's going to be okay." He sat next to her again and opened the bag of fries. "Here, eat with me." She took one fry, then another. Her hands were still shaking, but she smiled just a little. "You're kind," she whispered. "I just don't like seeing people alone," Malik said. "Especially not grandmas." That made her smile more. A few minutes later, flashing lights appeared. A police car pulled up, and then an ambulance. 2 officers stepped out, and a young female paramedic followed with a blanket. Malik stood up and waved. "She's right here. Her name is Margaret, I think." The paramedic rushed over. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Are you okay?" Margaret looked frightened again. She clung to Malik's sleeve. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. Malik leaned down. "They're here to help. It's okay, I promise." He gently took her hand and placed it in the paramedic's. "She just needs care. She's scared." The officer looked at Malik. "You found her?" "Yes, sir," Malik said. "She was just standing here. No one helped her. I couldn't leave her like that." The officer nodded. "You did the right thing." The paramedic wrapped a blanket around Margaret and carefully helped her stand. She looked back at Malik, her eyes filled with quiet emotion. She didn't speak, but her expression said thank you louder than words. As they placed her into the ambulance, one of the officers turned to Malik. "You're a good kid," he said. "What's your name?" "Malik." "Well, Malik, you may have saved someone's life today, But Malik didn't feel like a hero. He just felt like he did what any human should do. Malik stood quietly on the sidewalk as the ambulance drove away with the old woman inside. The sirens weren't loud, but they echoed in his chest. He watched until the lights disappeared down the wet road. The street was quieter now. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle. People walked past again, going about their lives. But something inside Malik had changed. He walked back to the bench and sat down. His fries were cold now, but he didn't care. His hoodie was gone, still with the old woman, but he felt warm inside. Not because of clothes, but because of something else. He had done the right thing. And that mattered. A few minutes later, 2 police officers returned to him. One of them was holding a notepad. The other had a phone in hand. "Hey son," the taller officer said. "Mind if we ask you a few more questions?" Malik nodded. "What's your full name?" "Malik Johnson," he answered. "You got an address?" Malik gave it. It was a small apartment complex in a rundown part of the city. The officer scribbled it down. "Did you know the woman?" The other officer asked. "No, sir. I just saw her standing there." No one was helping. "Why did you decide to help her?" he asked, looking curious. Malik shrugged. "I don't know. She looked scared, like she didn't belong there. I just couldn't walk away." The officers looked at each other, then smiled. "Well, Malik, that woman you helped, she's not just any old lady," one officer said. "We got her ID now. Her name is Margaret Alston." "Okay," Malik said softly. The name didn't mean anything to him. "She's a billionaire," the officer added. "Owns companies. Huge real estate. Very powerful woman," Malik blinked. "She's a billionaire?" "Yeah," the officer chuckled. "And you found her sitting on the street, lost, and no one else cared. You helped her. That's something, kid." Malik didn't know what to say. He had just followed his heart. He didn't think about money or names. He only saw a person in need. "Thank you, sir," Malik said. The officers nodded and left. Malik sat still, his thoughts spinning. Later that evening, he reached home. His mom opened the door. She was tired from work and had worry in her eyes. "Where were you?" she asked quickly. "I helped someone today, Mom," he said. Stepping inside, he told her everything. The rain, the woman, the police, the ambulance. His mother listened, her eyes filling with emotion. She hugged him tightly. "You did good, baby," she said. "That's the kind of man I raised." That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Margaret, how alone she looked, how she held his hand like a child. He hoped she was okay. He hoped someone stayed with her. Next day, things started to change. A news van showed up near his apartment building. Then another. Reporters asked for a boy named Malik Johnson. His neighbors peeked from windows. Kids came running. Malik stood by the steps, confused. A woman with a microphone walked up to him. "Are you Malik Johnson?" "Yes." "Can you tell us what happened yesterday?" He told them, just like he told the police. He kept it simple, honest. "I didn't know who she was," he said. "I just saw someone who needed help." That quote was on the news that night, and the next morning. And across social media, "Teen boy saves lost billionaire." People started calling him a hero. But Malik didn't feel like one. He was just a kid who didn't want someone to suffer. Later that week, Malik got a phone call. A woman's voice came through. "Hello, is this Malik Johnson?" "Yes, my name is Clara. I'm Margaret Elston's assistant. She's feeling better now. She asked me to call you personally. She wants to meet you." Malik's eyes widened. "She remembers me? She never forgot you. She said you were the only hand that felt warm in a cold world." Malik didn't know what to say. "Okay, I'd like to see her too." The assistant gave him a time and address. It wasn't a hospital. It was a private estate on the edge of the city. He didn't have a car, so he took the bus. The ride was long, but he kept thinking about her face, her eyes, and that moment in the rain when he reached the gate. Two men in black suits greeted him. They already knew his name. They opened the gate. Malik stepped inside the grand property, heart beating fast. The boy who had nothing, not even a phone, had been invited to meet one of the richest women in the city, but deep down, he still remembered her not as a billionaire, but as the scared old woman sitting in the rain. Malik stood in front of the big house. It looked like something out of a movie: wide gates, clean stone paths, tall glass windows, and flowers he didn't even know the names of. His shoes were still a little dusty from walking, and his hands felt cold even though the sun was shining. He had never seen a place like this in real life. The guards at the gate had let him in without asking too many questions. They already knew who he was. A woman came walking down the steps. She wore a neat black suit and had a kind smile on her face. "You must be Malik," she said. "I'm Clara, Mrs. Elston's assistant. She's been asking about you." Malik nodded. He felt a little nervous. He had never been to a place like this, never talked to someone so important. But he followed Clara through the giant doors and into the quiet, fancy house. The inside was huge. Clean floors, soft lights, and paintings on the walls that looked really old and really expensive. "She's in the garden," Clara said. Malik followed her through a hallway and out to a peaceful green space full of flowers, a small pond, and white benches under trees. And there, sitting under the shade with a light blanket on her lap, was the woman he had found in the rain. Margaret Elston. But she looked different now. Her hair was brushed, her clothes clean and soft, and her eyes clearer than before. Still, when she saw Malik, her face changed. Not because she didn't know him, but because she did. She smiled. "Malik," she said in a soft voice, "you came." Malik walked slowly toward her, unsure if he should sit or speak first. She looked at him, really looked like someone who remembered every second of their last meeting. "I wanted to make sure you were okay," he said gently. Margaret reached out and took his hand. Her grip was stronger now, but still gentle. "You already did more than anyone else," she said, "but I'm so glad you're here." They sat together on the bench. For a few moments, neither spoke. Birds chirped nearby. The wind moved the trees softly. "I couldn't remember where I was," she finally said. "That day, I had a spell. Something with my memory. The doctors call it confusion from medication and stress. I wandered out. I didn't even know how far I had walked." Malik listened quietly. "I remember standing there. People walked by. I tried to speak, but my voice wouldn't come out. I thought I was going to die right there on the street, and no one would even notice." Her voice shook. She took a deep breath, but then I felt a hand. "Yours." Malik smiled slightly. "I'm glad I was there." She looked at him deeply. "So am I? The world saw me as just a lost old woman. You saw me as a person. That's something money can't buy." They talked for a while longer. Malik told her about his school, his mom working long hours, and how he hoped to go to college one day, even if he didn't know how he would pay for it. He wasn't complaining, just sharing. Margaret listened like every word mattered. After a while, Clara came back with some lemonade and snacks. They all sat and ate together. It didn't feel like a meeting between a billionaire and a boy from the poor side of town. It felt like two people who had found something rare in each other, kindness. When it was time for Malik to leave, Margaret stood up slowly with her cane. "I want to do something for you, Malik," she said. "Not because you helped me, but because of how you helped me." He looked confused. "You don't have to give me anything." "But I want to," she said. "You gave me more than you know. You reminded me of something I forgot a long time ago, what it feels like to be seen, truly seen. I was once like you know, young, poor, and scared. Someone helped me once. Now it's my turn." Malik was quiet. He didn't know what she meant yet, but her words touched his heart. "Come, see me again soon," she said. "There's more I'd like to talk to you about," Malik smiled. "I'd like that." He left the estate feeling lighter, even though his pockets were still empty. Because sometimes, being rich has nothing to do with money. It's about moments. Like this. And Malik felt something was about to change, not just in Margaret's life, but in his own. And it all started with a single act of kindness. In the middle of the rain. Malik walked home that day feeling like something inside him had shifted. He couldn't explain it, but meeting Margaret again, this time at her beautiful home, with her voice calm and her mind clear, gave him a kind of peace. She wasn't just a stranger anymore. She was someone who remembered him, respected him, and wanted to know him. He didn't understand why a billionaire would care about a teenager like him. But he didn't question it either. It just felt right back in his neighborhood. Things were still the same. Broken sidewalks, kids playing with flat footballs, people hanging out near small shops. His apartment was still old, the walls thin, the windows rattling when trucks passed by. But now something felt different. His mother smiled more. The neighbors nodded at him with proud eyes. Some even called him the newsboy or Hero Malik. A few younger kids looked at him like he was someone special. But Malik never let it go to his head. He still helped his mom with groceries. Still washed dishes. Still studied at night, even though the lights flickered sometimes. A few days later, another black car pulled up near Malik's building. It looked expensive, and people stared. Out stepped Clara, the assistant. She walked up the stairs and knocked on their door. Malik opened it, surprised. "Miss Clara?" She smiled. "Mrs. Elston would like to invite you and your mother for dinner at her home tomorrow evening." His mom, who had just stepped out of the kitchen, looked shocked. "Dinner? At her house?" "Yes," Clara nodded kindly. She insisted. The next evening, Malik and his mother arrived at the grand estate. His mom wore her best dress, simple but clean. Malik wore a shirt that was a little tight, but still neat. They both felt nervous, but Clara welcomed them with warmth and guided them inside. Margaret was waiting in the dining room. She stood up slowly and opened her arms to greet Malik. "You came," she said with a wide smile. She then turned to his mother. "You raised a very good son." Malik's mom smiled politely, but her eyes held tears. "Thank you. That means everything to me." They all sat down at a long wooden table. The food was elegant, things Malik couldn't name, but tasted amazing. But more than the food, it was the way Margaret made them feel. Not like guests, but like family. Halfway through dinner, Margaret gently placed her napkin down and looked at them both. "I want to tell you something," she said. They listened closely. "I've made a decision. I want to take care of Malik's education, all of it. High school, college, everything. Wherever he wants to study, it will be paid for. I want him to have every chance in life." Malik froze. His mother gasped. "Mrs. Elston, that's too much." His mom said softly. Margaret shook her head. "It's not. It's the least I can do. That day in the rain, your son gave me back my life. He didn't care who I was. He saw me when no one else did. That kind of heart is rare. And I want to protect it, grow it. The world needs more people like him." Malik tried to speak, but his voice cracked. I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll use the chance," Margaret said, smiling. "And promise me, when the time comes, you'll help someone else, just like you helped me." Tears fell silently down Malik's face. He nodded. "I promise." The rest of the evening was filled with laughter, soft music, and stories from Margaret's younger days, stories Malik loved hearing. Not because she was rich, but because she was real. She had struggled once too. She had walked the hard road before she built her empire. And now she was passing on that light. When they left that night, Margaret hugged them both like family. She wasn't just a billionaire anymore. She was part of their lives. And from that night on, everything slowly started to change for Malik, not because of money, but because someone believed in him. Malik's life didn't change overnight, but it started to feel brighter step by step. After the dinner at Margaret Olstan's home, things became different. He wasn't just a poor boy from a forgotten neighborhood anymore. People began to see him for who he truly was, a kind soul with a strong heart. And more importantly, he started to believe in himself. A week later, a letter arrived at Malik's door. It had no stamps, just gold writing on a white envelope. His mother opened it carefully and handed it to him. Inside was a full scholarship letter signed by Margaret herself. It said he was now part of a private school program for gifted students starting next semester. All fees, books, supplies, uniforms covered. Not just that, she had arranged for a small monthly amount to help his mother too, so she could work fewer hours and be home more. Malik couldn't believe it. He held the paper in his hands like it was made of gold. Why is she doing this? He asked his mom that night. His mother smiled. Because God used you to help her. And now he is using her to lift you. Malik promised himself he wouldn't waste this chance. He studied harder. He showed up early every day. He made new friends who respected him. But he never forgot where he came from. Even when he wore a neat blazer and studied in clean classrooms, he still helped carry groceries for neighbors back home. He still shared snacks with kids in the building. And every Sunday, he and his mom visited Margaret. They would sit in her garden, sometimes talk, sometimes sit quietly. It wasn't about her money. It was about the bond they had. A strange, beautiful friendship born from a cold, rainy day on the street. One afternoon, as they sipped tea under the garden umbrella, Margaret said something that stayed in Malik's heart forever. You know, people often think that wealth is about big houses and cars, she said, gently swirling her tea. But the real wealth in this world is kindness. And you, Malik, are the richest person I've met. He looked at her with quiet eyes. I don't have much. But you gave me everything when I had nothing, she said. That's real richness. Later that month, Margaret invited Malik to join her at a community event. It was being held at a large city hall, filled with students, parents, and people from all walks of life. Margaret was the guest speaker. Malik had never been to a place like that. He wore a clean suit, gifted by Margaret, and sat in the front row beside her assistant Clara. When Margaret walked up to the stage, everyone clapped. She was powerful, elegant, and yet, the first thing she said surprised everyone. I don't want to talk about business today, she said. I want to talk about a boy. The crowd became quiet. His name is Malik Johnson, she continued. He didn't come from money. He didn't have power. He didn't even know who I was. But he saw me, lost and afraid, when no one else would stop, and he took my hand. People turned to look at Malik. Some gasped quietly. He reminded me of who I was before the world gave me this name, she said. He gave me back my dignity. And I want this city to know that character is greater than success, that kindness is power. There wasn't a dry eye in the room after the event. People came to Malik. They shook his hand. They thanked him. A few even hugged him. Reporters asked questions. But Malik stayed humble. I didn't do anything special, he said softly. I just didn't ignore someone who needed help. And that simple answer touched everyone even more. Back home that night, Malik lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His life had changed, but his heart hadn't. He still remembered the cold rain, the fear in Margaret's eyes, the way her hand trembled when he held it. He whispered quietly into the darkness, "Thank you for putting me there at that moment." Because now he understood something deeper. Sometimes the smallest acts create the biggest waves. And this wave was just getting started. Months passed. Malik was now attending his new school. The classrooms were cleaner, the books were newer, and the teachers gave him real attention. But even in the middle of all this, Malik never changed. He remained kind, polite, and helpful to everyone, just like the boy who once sat in the rain sharing cold fries with a lost old woman. One day, after school, Clara picked him up in the car Margaret usually sent for him. But this time, she looked more serious than usual. Double quotes, "Mrs. Elston isn't feeling well today," she said softly as they drove. Malik sat up. "Is she sick?" "She's been tired lately," Clara replied. "Her health isn't the same as before. But she keeps asking for you." Malik's heart sank a little. When they reached the estate, the garden was quiet. No birds, no laughter. The flowers still bloomed, but the feeling had changed. He was taken inside, not to the living room, but to a quiet bedroom at the back. Margaret was lying in bed. She looked smaller now, her skin paler, but her eyes lit up when she saw him. "My boy," she whispered. "You came." Malik walked over and gently held her hand. "Of course I did," she smiled weakly. "I wanted to see you. One more time, I want to tell you something important." "Please don't talk like that," he said, his voice trembling, but Margaret gently squeezed his fingers. "Listen to me, Malik. Life is short, but kindness lives forever. The world needs people like you, people who stop, people who care." He nodded slowly. "I've seen the world," she continued. "I've owned businesses, stood in front of presidents, and sat in the richest rooms. But no one ever made me feel more human than you did." In the middle of that cold sidewalk, a tear rolled down Malik's cheek. "You saved me too," he whispered. Margaret smiled. "Then we saved each other." She reached for something on the bedside table, a small envelope with Malik's name on it. "This is for you," she said. "Not because you asked, but because you never did." Inside the envelope was a letter, handwritten, and a legal document. Malik didn't understand all of it at first, but Clara later explained. Margaret had placed a portion of her fortune in his name. It wasn't just money. It included an education trust, a home for his family, and a foundation under his name to help others like him. But that day, Malik didn't care about any of that. He just sat by her side, holding her hand, listening to her breath, soft and slow. He didn't want to let go. "Not now, not ever." She looked at him one last time and whispered, "Promise me. You'll stay kind." "I promise," he said, his voice breaking. Margaret closed her eyes with a peaceful smile. The next morning, the world woke to headlines. Billionaire passes away quietly, leaves legacy to the team who saved her soul. The news shocked people, but those who knew the real story, they weren't shocked at all. Because this was never about business. It was about heart. Malik attended the funeral with his mother. He wore the same suit she had once gifted him. The crowd was full of important people, CEOs, lawyers, politicians. But Margaret's final wishes were clear. Malik would speak. He stood at the front, holding the mic with both hands. "She was more than rich," he began. "She was human. She cared. And I was lucky to know her, not as a billionaire, but as a person who needed a hand." He paused. "She told me to stay kind. That's the last thing she ever said, and I will. I promise." People cried. People clapped. But more than anything, people understood. Margaret Elston didn't just leave behind buildings, money, or companies. She left behind a young man named Malik, with a heart full of purpose. And that, the world would soon realize, was the greatest gift of all. Years passed. The world had changed. And so had Malik. But deep inside, he was still the same boy who once walked across a rainy street and asked an old woman if she needed help. Now he was older. He wore clean suits more often. He gave speeches. He helped young students find scholarships, and he worked with charities across the city. He had finished college with top honors. He even opened a learning center in his old neighborhood. free for every child who walked through the door. On the sign outside, it simply said, "The Margaret Center, where kindness begins." People often asked him, "What made you who you are?" Malik would always smile and say, "It wasn't a what, it was a who." One cool afternoon, Malik visited the city bench where it had all started. The same corner, the same spot near the old trash bin. The city had painted the sidewalk since then. A small plaque was placed on the wall behind the bench. It read, "This is where a boy chose kindness and changed a life." Malik sat down, lost in thought. He wasn't alone. Sitting beside him was a little girl, his daughter. Her name was Hope. She looked up at him with big, curious eyes. "Daddy," she said, "is this the place you helped the lady?" He smiled. "Yes, right here." Was she really a billionaire? She was, Malik said softly. But more than that, she was lost, and everyone ignored her. Except me. Why did you help her? Malik looked up at the sky, thinking back to that rainy day. "Because I saw her," he said, "and I think maybe she saw me too." Hope nodded like she understood. She leaned against his arm. "You always say helping one person can change the world." "That's right," Malik said. "And sometimes, helping one person changes your own world." The wind blew gently. Birds flew by. People walked past, busy, distracted, rushing, like they always did. But Malik no longer felt invisible in the world. He had purpose, he had peace, and he had a story that reminded others what really matters. Across the city, the foundation Margaret had created in Malik's name continued to grow. Thousands of students got help, families found homes, lost people found hope. Not because someone threw money at them, but because one teenage boy had stopped in the rain and cared. Margaret was gone, but her spirit lived in every hand Malik held, in every voice he encouraged, and in every act of quiet kindness he passed on. And now, he was teaching his daughter to do the same. As the sun set, casting golden light on the bench, Malik whispered a quiet, "Thank you to the sky. Thank you for the rain that day. Thank you for the moment. Thank you for the woman who changed his life, because he dared to stop when no one else would."